afternoon, Allied Nation. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of AMN Live. And we're talking all things to celebrate OT Month. But before we get started and before I introduce you to our special guests, let me introduce myself first. My name is Rachel, and I'll be your hostess with the mostest this afternoon. And a couple of housekeeping items. Please feel free to drop questions, comments into our chat. We want to answer them as swiftly as possible during this session. Also, please be sure to check out our Passport app. If you haven't gotten connected with a recruiter yet, that is a great spot to start your profile and get connected with one of our awesome recruiters. You can also go to our website, to amnhealthcare.com, and we have a special scholarship contest going on. So all you need to do is submit an essay. It's going to be for folks that are graduating from school, and you submit your essay as to why you got into the field that you did. So that is for PTs, SLPs, OTs, and school psychologists. So that is a really great contest. $5,000 scholarship will be awarded then. And then also like I said, keep the questions coming because we love to answer them. And so without further ado, let me introduce to you my special guest. We have Kyla and Claudia joining us. Kyla is one of our senior recruiters with AMN, and Claudia is our newest AMN partner, which is very, very exciting. So, Claudia, we're going to get it started off with you. Tell us about yourself, why you became an OT, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Claudia. I'm a travel OT. I kind of got into OT. Originally, I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. I wanted to do a profession that was helping people. Originally, I wanted to be a nurse, but I was not good with needles and IVs back in high school. Now they don't bother me. But so I kind of went towards the therapy route, and I ended up picking OT because my mom's an OT and I didn't want to go to school, PT school, for 7 years. So I ended up at a 5 years master's program, and yeah, I've loved it ever since. So
good. Well, I mean, 5 is definitely better than 7.
yes.
So tell us some more about your experiences as an OT, how long you've been doing it, and then where you started when you were fresh out of school.
Yeah, so I have been an OT I'll be 2 years in May. So I started travel therapy right out of school. I kind of knew that was what I wanted to do, and I was kind of going to find a way to do it and find, a recruiter, a company that could help support me through that. So I started out in South Carolina in an acute care position. So I was there for 3 months, and then I ended up going back to South Carolina for another rotation because I loved it. And then I've been in Oregon, Indiana, and Florida. Now I'm going back again to Florida for a second rotation there. So I'll be on my 6th travel assignment starting next week. So I kind of told myself, I'm going to get into travel. If I hate it, I'll just stop and go home. But I've been 2 years now, and I think I'll do it for, at least another 2 years. So I love it.
Nice. Well, hey, we love travelers. Travelers make facilities very happy.
Yeah.
You guys come in and save the day, essentially.
Yes.
So, all right. So you started in an acute care facility in South Carolina. Is that the location that you wanted to go to at first?
So originally I wanted to go to Florida. That is all I wanted to do was go there, but the jobs are very limited there just because everybody wants to be there. And, when there are jobs there, they go very fast. So I kind of was like, I need to be more flexible as a new grad. I'm not that marketable yet. I need to build my experience and stuff like that. So I found one that was within 2 hours of a beach. The beach is where I love to be. That's where I take a lot of my contracts. So I was willing to settle and do that. And I told myself, it's 3 months. And then I ended up getting my second rotation in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So that was right there. So yeah, it kind of I haven't really had expectations for travel as I've gone. I've kind of just been presented with what are the options out there. And, I just end up where I feel called to be. So.
Excellent. So you mentioned you started as a new grad. So Kyla, I'm actually going to turn it over to you because I would love for you to share some info about our new grad program.
Yeah, so for your first 2 years of contracts with AMN, you'll have another OT, PT, speech therapist essentially as your mentor. So with that, like they've been with AMN for at least 3 years, and they have experience in multitudes of settings: SNF, outpatient, acute, home health, schools. So whatever setting you're starting in is usually what the mentor you'll end up in is the most experience in that setting. But they're just someone that you have access to throughout those 2 years that you can ask and email questions to back and forth, anything travel related, or if you have any clinical questions that come up, or even travel related, but like, where can I find housing in an area because me and my recruiter are having trouble? Do you have any friends in the area? To just kind of use as an additional support.
Awesome. Yeah. And then we also offer CEUs as well through MedBridge. And then we also cover licensing and certifications, which is always a huge plus because, as Claudia, I'm sure will mention, it can get a little expensive in certain spots.
Yes.
So what was your process getting started as a traveling OT, Claudia?
So I didn't really know a lot of people who jumped right into travel. It was kind of stressful believing that I could do it as a new grad. I knew one girl from college who had done it, so I used her as a resource. And then I kind of did my own research and found other travel therapists and kind of reached out to them and said, do you have recruiters that you've used that you love? And I got Kyla through them. And kind of, I always tell people you really want to find a recruiter and a travel company that's going to have your back, because at the end of the day, that's the most important part of travel, in my opinion. And, that's going to make or break a lot of things for you. They're going to be your support system through it, and help you, answer all your questions. I have still questions 2 years in, and I text Kyla and she answers me within 5 minutes. So it's been great. And I think, at first it seems very overwhelming. You're just finishing your boards, you're just getting out of school. But once you start talking to recruiters and companies, it becomes a little bit more apparent on the process and how it's pretty simple once you get started.
So you mentioned you heard about Kyla through somebody else, which otherwise known as a referral.
Yes.
Referrals we love. So Kyla, just to throw down a little bit of info, how much do we pay for referrals?
Gosh, $1,000. Once we work 13 weeks on a contract. So anyone that you send us through AMN, if they apply, make sure that on the little snippet they fill out, it'll ask how they heard about AMN. You can put your friend's name there, or if you already have a recruiter with AMN, you can just send them their contact information, and then your recruiter can reach out to them that way too. But you'll get the $1,000 as soon as they finish their 13-week assignment.
Nice. So, just saying for future reference, if you ever wanted to have a travel buddy and you're just tired of going solo, you could say, hey, friend, you can use me as your referrer. I'll get $1,000 bonus, and we can split the difference and do something totally crazy and go backpacking across Europe if we wanted to. I'm just saying, it's a suggestion. So for OTs, how is the current market looking, job wise, and what settings do we see mostly? And that goes to you, Kyla.
Yeah, so we have roughly 170 OT jobs right now. It fluctuates every day. Some close, some open. But with that, we have roughly 70 to 80% are going to be in a SNF. And then we have the rest, extra 20% will be in acute, outpatient, home health. We have some schools thrown in there as well. I use our app. AMN Passport is a really good resource for all travelers, but new grads too, just to kind of get an idea of where jobs are open now, because it doesn't change that much. Like Claudia said, she was really gung-ho on going to Florida at first, and then she realized, okay, that's not going to be like what happens at first. So she had to be flexible, move along, but it kind of helps you, gauge like, okay, when I graduate, where do I want to go? Where are the jobs that we have open right now to help that? But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a healthy market for OTs. So we're always excited to see that, to get folks like Claudia out there traveling. Claudia, you are next on the docket. So tell us what entails you preparing for your next assignment. What do you do?
So I think it kind of depends. You're in a 3-month contract, and then you ultimately, as the traveler, can decide when you pick up your next assignment. So sometimes I've taken off 2 weeks in between, sometimes a month. Last summer, I took the whole summer off, so that was really nice. So you kind of get to be your own deciding factor in that. But I would say anywhere from like a month and a half, I'll kind of start thinking about it. It'll really depend on where you go because some licenses take longer than others. But typically, I'll reach back out to Kyla and I'll say, I think I might want to go here next. Like, what's the market looking like? Is it going to be possible? Or what do you have open that's kind of, you think I'll like? And then we'll start, either submitting to jobs, or she'll be like, okay, let's just wait a little bit until it gets closer. The recruiter is definitely an essential part in that, because sometimes I'll be halfway through a contract and I'll forget that I even need to start looking for the next. And Kyla will be like, okay, where are we going next? So that also really helps as well, because they keep tabs on you too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that recruiter clinician relationship is the bread and butter of this whole thing working as successfully as it possibly can. So I always love to highlight that on these live events, is to really showcase that relationship. You want to make sure you're with somebody that will reach out to you, or vice versa. You feel comfortable reaching out to them, even if it's to say, I am getting a photo shoot done of my dog, because why not? It's fun. All right. So we talked market conditions, we talked new grad, we talked prepping for your next assignment, contract extensions. And this goes to both of you. So contract extensions from both sides. Claudia, when do you reach out to your recruiter when it comes to possibly extending your contract?
So I think it kind of depends. I've been at some places where I've been like 2 weeks in and they're like, okay, are you ready to extend like past your day? And I'm like, I just hold on a second. But yeah, so usually like halfway through, I would say, if I'm kind of gauging like I like it here, I'll extend, or I don't like it here, I want to keep, my end date where it is. I think a big thing for me, like when I extended in Florida, it was like another month and a half until Christmas, and I knew I was going to take December off. So I was like, let's go ahead and try to put in the extension. Sometimes it'll take longer than others. Sometimes the facility will reach out to the recruiter before they even talk to you. It'll kind of just depend, but keeping that open communication, with your recruiter, and Kyla's great about that. She always checks in and she knows how it's going pretty much every week. So she'll know if I want to extend or not.
And then Kyla, from your side of things, how does the whole extension process work?
Yeah, I would say you really like the halfway point. So the 6th or 7th week in your contract is when you should be having those conversations with your recruiter. Like, do you love it? And if you do love it, like, okay, let's extend. Let's see if the facility still has a need to keep you there for another 13 weeks. And if they don't, then we can that will dictate that halfway point. It'll start getting the traveler interested in like, okay, crap, when am I going to start my next contract? What do I have planned? Where am I going to go? So I definitely think the halfway point in the contract is a good starting point to have the conversation with the traveler, and then have the conversation with the facility too, to see if there's a need still open.
Yeah. And just a quick tip, like if you have a specific location you want to get to, you have your profile submitted with your recruiter, and you're like, man, I think I want to do longer at this just because I've been waiting for this location to pop up. Don't be shy to ask, hey, can we do an 18-week assignment? Or if you want to do 6 months there, you have the ability to ask your recruiter, and then on our end, we can, reach out to the facility and see if they are up for doing an extended type of contract longer than 13 weeks. So that is always a possibility. There tends to be sometimes a little bit more flexibility. Like if you're needing a few extra days off during an assignment, asking for an extended assignment is a really good look to the facility to say, okay, they're committing 18 weeks. We can give them, that 1 week additional off things of that nature. So just something to keep in mind. All right. So Claudia, experiences as a traveler, what are well, we talked about your favorite locations. So obviously Florida being being number one. But your favorite settings, what are your, top 3 things you like to pack in your car to go, hike across country or whatever, wherever you're going?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm trying to think. My top settings would probably be inpatient rehab and acute care. I really love being in the hospitals. When I was in Oregon, I actually did like a kind of like a 3-part rotation. So I was in acute care, outpatient pediatrics, and outpatient adult, which was really cool because I got to see 3 different settings. I was the only OT there in a very small part of town. So that was really cool, building my own caseload and kind of being the sole person running that, the OT part of it, which was cool. And working with a bunch of different people. But I have driven to all my assignments. So I did drive from Pennsylvania to Oregon. I travel with my dog. So
How
that
long
makes
did that take?
I think it was like a week and a half, but my friend came out with me and then flew back. So we made like a whole road trip, which was really fun. But I would say, what do I bring with me? I overpack a lot, probably more than I need, but I do travel with my dog, so he comes with a lot of it, his own stuff. But I would say probably the top things I bring. I mean, obviously clothes for whatever season. I usually pack clothes for both seasons just because sometimes I'll be traveling in the middle of an assignment. So that's always something to consider. What else do I bring? I recently just started flying with my dog, so he has his own dog backpack. So I bring that everywhere.
Like
That
he's
I
in
use,
it?
yeah, he's in it.
That's so
I
cute.
thought he would hate it, but he loves it. So that comes everywhere, and we use that for hikes too. I'm trying to think what else. I don't travel with like a ton. I think another thing that I always bring is my own pillow. I'm like very particular about the pillow I use.
Yeah.
That's always something that I want, and like blankets, because sometimes places don't always have extra blankets. So that would be like my top things that I bring.
Yeah, or the good type of blankets.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little scratchy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I always love to ask that. I've gotten all different. Like some people like to bring their own a set of cookware because they're very particular about their pots and pans, which is cool.
Yeah.
I'm not a sous chef myself, but I could see that,
Being
being
a
a
thing.
priority.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I forgot to ask this question. But when you're in the submission process for jobs, what are your top 3 interview questions that you ask?
Yeah. So I always ask, no matter the setting, I always ask why the facility needs a traveler. Are you going to be covering a maternity leave? Are you going to be covering like someone's out for an extended period of time, or is it because they can't find anybody to fill that spot? And a lot of the times when I've been at places, it's not because the job is terrible, but it's just because people can't live in that area of town, or it's very expensive, or people just don't want to live there, for years on end. So they just do travel contracts there, but they've had travelers for a while and people love it. I also always ask, am I going to be the only OT there? How many other OTs are there? Or what does the other staff kind of look like? How long has the staff been there? You can kind of tell if there's a high turnover rate, people might not want to work there, or, if people have been there a long time, you can kind of gauge if it's, the right facility or if it's a right fit. I sometimes even ask about housing. Sometimes if I've gone to like a more remote location, I'll ask, do you have any housing leads, or do you have like a list of things that people love to do in the area? But I usually ask that when I get there as well. I think another big tip, kind of not going off of the interview process, is like I always like to rent for a month. And then once I get there, I see if, I meet people, or I'll meet landlords, and I'll be like, okay, then I'll just live there the remaining months. So that's also kind of a little thing. I never rent for 3 months. I always try to do a month at a time. And then I usually end up meeting people and it works out. So
That's a really good tip. Um, Kyla, for housing, because we know always a hot topic. Can you tell us a little bit about our housing that we are able to accommodate into an entire package?
Yeah, so we can, provide company housing that, is in your pay package at AMN. And so with that, you'll, if you have a dog, that's something we probably need to know beforehand before we book it. But our housing department knows of, extended stays in the area or a small furnished apartment that you can get while on assignment. So, the big things with that, I would just say is if you know that up front, make sure you're telling your recruiter that's something you need. So when you get an interview and an offer, then we can build that in.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you ever find yourself feeling stuck, what AMN can provide is, even if it's just for the first 2 weeks of your contract, hey, let's get in touch with our housing department. Let's get you set up just for the first 2 weeks so you can hit the ground. Because sometimes what I've noticed is a lot of rentals, short-term rentals, aren't necessarily posted online. Sometimes it's a local newspaper and you just find it, or it's even a street sign that's up there. But it also gives you a good opportunity to really look at the area where you are preferring to stay. So yeah, I love that tip that you mentioned, Claudia, is just to do a 1 month stay, get your feet wet into that area and, try to find another rental or meet a friend and bunk with them. So it's good deal. So Claudia, I want to end this off by asking you if you are able to share a story with, I would like a happy ending. What out of your travels, because you've done a few assignments, out of your travels, what story do you have that just sticks with you about a patient, a facility, what have you?
Let's see. So, well, this isn't really related to a facility or something, but so traveling with a dog can be challenging. I traveled when my dog was a puppy and had to be crated and everything. And I ended up finding somebody to watch him on Rover. I don't know if you've used the Rover app before.
No.
But I ended up meeting these two girls who watched my dog for a week, and I had housing for a month, and it was really expensive. And I was like, I'm going to need to find something new. And they ended up having an extra bedroom. And I ended up moving in with them, and they became my best friends. They were the coolest people ever. And I think people always stress about traveling alone and meeting people, and that was my fear when I got started. And I feel every assignment I've met the most amazing people. I met another girl through Instagram because in Oregon, literally in the middle of nowhere, Oregon on the coast, we had been posting the same pictures on our road trip. And I was like, why are you doing the same road trip I'm doing right now? And she's like, I have a travel contract, the same dates. And she ended up becoming my best friend over there. I would have never known she was there if we didn't connect through social media. And then I convinced her to come to Europe with me. So literally, I think people stress out, about meeting friends, but you'll find people in the most crazy ways through your travels. And I think that's my favorite part. I've had a million patients, give me even housing leads, or, they'll just tell you something to do and you'll meet people through that. It is just the connections you'll make through travel, even when you do it by yourself, is just, it's my favorite part. And it's sometimes I think about if I didn't start travel, and it's makes me upset. If I never met the people that I did. So I always share those stories, when people are kind of nervous getting into it. You never know what can happen. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that you never know who you're going to come across.
Yeah.
It's just fate works in funny ways.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool. So let's see. I'm trying to think because I love to, especially pick an experienced traveler's mind as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, we can skip to. So you are AMN's newest partner. You can be found on TikTok and Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So what? Just briefly, what got you started into using social media and wanting to create an outlet and talking to hopefully future travelers?
Yeah, so I think my big thing was like when I got started, there wasn't really like a point person that I could like ask questions to. I feel like a lot of what I saw out there was a lot of like travel couples, which is great, but I was very much so single and not just doing it by myself. And I didn't have any friends that were doing it with me either. So I kind of just started posting just for fun. Like I was like, here's my experience. And like it was more so a way for me to look back on it and like see how much I've grown. And then also like for my family to like keep in touch with me and see what was happening. And then it kind of just like took off where people were like, wait, how do you do this? And like I get a lot of people saying that their professors tell them not to do it right out of school as a new grad. And I was like, yeah, I was told that too. But I kind of was just like, I mean, I'm going to try it anyway. Like I've seen other people do it. So I think it's becoming a bigger thing now where people are, sharing their experiences. And, at first it's kind of like nerve wracking. Like, are people going to make fun of you? But there's always somebody out there that's like looking for someone to relate to, really in any topic of social media too. So yeah, it kind of blossomed from there, and it's like created a lot of relationships for me, and I can connect them with Kyla, and it's just really cool to see it come full circle.
Awesome. I love to hear that because there still is a lot of unknowns in the travel
Mm-hmm.
world, so it's always great to have, someone like you that's out there just sharing stories and hopefully making people feel comfortable, especially as a new grad, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not easy being flexible,
No.
just coming out of school.
Yeah.
So you can travel as a new grad. It can be a really, really great experience out the gates. And like Claudia had mentioned earlier, if you don't like it, it's 13 weeks and you can find, another gig. It's okay.
Yeah.
So that's the best part about travel is there is that flexibility. Even taking the whole month of December off or taking a couple weeks off to, where are you going coming up, Claudia?
I'm going to Greece in June. So yeah, that's another thing. You can take weeks off in the middle of your contract if they're flexible. And then usually I just add 2 weeks on to the end of it and it's no biggie.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's the cool part of travel too. You get to kind of make your own schedule sometimes and, not miss things. I've had a lot of weddings that I probably would have missed if I didn't travel, and I got to be home for them. So it's really cool.
I love that. All right. Well, I think we are nearing the end of our time. I want to thank you both so much for joining me this afternoon. Like I said, I really love to just share the relationship between recruiter and traveler/clinician because it is a very important piece. Claudia, thank you so much for all that you do, especially for Happy OTs Month. We appreciate all of our healthcare professionals, but of course, for the month of April, we are highlighting our OTs. And then, of course, I want to thank anyone who has chimed in to view our live session this afternoon, and you can also view it later on if you didn't get a chance to check it out. Again, visit our Passport app if you haven't gotten connected with a recruiter. Check out our hot jobs, and you can also visit us on Instagram at AMN Allied. But for now, that is all. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.